Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Franklin Toastmasters. We're going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, so if you turn. There's a flag out there. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is the table topics portion of the meeting. It's the impromptu portion of the meeting, and it prepares us for speaking off the cuff. Let's get started. Do we have any football fans in the audience?
Carol, you better raise your hand.
Okay. The Tennessee Titans are off to a pretty good start this year so far. I think they are, they're 2-1 or 3-1? 2-1. Okay. Just give us your thoughts about how the Titans season is going to go this year, and just kind of elaborate on that. Jim.
I think I should preface my remarks by saying that when the Tennessee Titans first came into Nashville and got to the Coliseum, I bought PSLs. My wife's a rabid football fan, and so we've actually only missed 3 home games since 1999. And in 1999, we went to the Super Bowl, and the Titans went to the Super Bowl. This year, after an abysmal season last year, appears to be a pretty good year. We've got a young, developing quarterback who was outstanding in college and who's been coming along slowly, named Jake Locker, and he is showing some promise as someone who can lead the team. We have just over the last season traded for quite a number of what you call free agents in football. These are players who were pretty good players for other teams, but because of the competition at their teams didn't make the team and were cut, and so we're out in what they call the free agency market. So we picked up quite a number of free agents, particularly in the offensive and defensive line. So at this point, the team seems to have gelled and are showing quite a good spirit and a good attitude. They're all working together. So I will make the prediction that this year, hopefully the Titans will be in the playoffs and maybe we'll go pretty far in the playoffs. That's our hope, Mr. Toastmaster.
There are some holiday-specific desserts that are created, or holiday-specific foods that are created. One of the foods that I like Halloween pancakes. They're made out of pumpkin. I guess they put pumpkin in there. Super fantastic. Delicious. Love those. Tell us about your favorite holiday food and what that is. Carol.
Thank you. I have to say I like Thanksgiving, and I like to repeat the meal at Thanksgiving and Christmas. I like turkey and stuffing and mashed potatoes and pumpkin pie, all those traditional foods. But I also, as a kid, learned to love rutabaga, which is a yellow turnip, which I have learned over the years I may be the only person that likes rutabaga. But when my mom was alive and I was home at Thanksgiving or Christmas, she would make that for me. And I had one Thanksgiving, I guess it was the first Thanksgiving that I had my husband's new family come over for Thanksgiving, and I made rutabaga. Well, if you don't know what it is, it looks a lot like sweet potatoes. And so I served it, and I never thought about other people not liking it. And Tom's dad is sitting there, and you can tell he's being really polite, just kind of, he finally said, "Carol, why don't your sweet potatoes taste like sweet potatoes?" Went through the whole rutabaga routine of what it was and all, and that became tradition. Every Thanksgiving, they would say, okay, Carol, if you want it, you bring it, because we're not cooking it. And even my kids, it's just a big joke. And I have found there is a company now that makes frozen rutabaga. It's a southern company. So I no longer make it myself. It's hard to make. And rutabaga probably fits right in there as one of my favorites. Mr. Topic Master. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our topic session for this morning. I'll now turn it back over to the Toastmaster.
Ready to go back to action. At this time, so he gets a complete surprise, I'm going to introduce our newest member who is going to repeat his icebreaker. He's done it at another club before he moved to join us, but this will let him explain who he is, what he's about, and everything else. So welcome up. Now, how much time do you want for your icebreaker?
4 minutes?
4 minutes, okay, that's fine. I just double checked that that's what you want.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
And I think if required, I'll be using my notes. So, just want to know. Hello all. I would like to just start with one of the most exciting moments in my life. I was in Bombay Stock Exchange in August 2004. CEO of my first company, Ramadurai, he was ringing the bell of the exchange, and it was a gathering of 1,000 people. There was so much of joy around. I was so excited, and that became my vision of my life. This is what I should be, either list my own company in the exchange, or either work in a company where I reach to a level, I go to exchange and ring the bell. Hello Toastmasters and guests, my name is Prashant Dhoot. About something about me, I'm a smart worker. I'm kind of workaholic. I like to work a lot, I work around 12, 14 hours per day. And the best part is, I work what I like. It's not that someone has to force to me. I came in here because of I like it. I like IDNA. I like the work I do here. So that's about me. Going to my curriculum, I did my mechanical engineering from University of Pune. It's one of the best universities of East of Asia. Mechanical engineering, and it was a 4 years course. In that course, I was involved in a lot of extra social activities and extracurricular activities. I was the president of Mechanical Engineers Students Association in Maharashtra. That's a state in India. Then after my engineering, I got placed in a company called Tata Motors. It's the best automobile industry in Asia. I was in Six Sigma department there. If someone asked me what the ninth wonder of the world should be, I would blindly say Tata Motors. The reason being, when I went to the company for the first time, I was like, I learned that a car can be assembled in 90 seconds. That's what it takes to make a car, just 90 seconds. I went there, the Korean robots, machine from Germany, all managers from China, India, US, and I was thrilled to learn the world-class processes. I had a paint shop, the paint shop there was fully, vacuum, the paintings are in vacuum so that, the dust particles won't go, and they take care of the car so much that when it comes out, I feel bad if someone scratches the car, because I know what it takes to make a car. 90 seconds, but the kind of processes involved is too good. In Tata Motors, I was basically working in Six Sigma department. I became a master black belt there. Then eventually I moved to Infosys. Infosys, we had a project called Boeing of Seattle. So they had a project of CAD/CAM and streamlining the manufacturing processes. So Infosys was doing consulting for that. But unfortunately, the deal didn't materialize. And Infosys hired me. And that time there was a lot of regulations coming in healthcare in US. So that's the way I moved in healthcare. It was a 360-degree turn in my life, but again, for 2 or 3 months I explored and I liked working in healthcare. I was working for Aetna that time in Infosys. I worked there for 2.5 years, 3 years. So that's where I learned claims, I learned about how membership is enrolled, and I learned end-to-end about healthcare world, at least in US and in Europe. Then after that I moved to Seattle. I got a new client, Group Health. I like Seattle, except it rains a lot. And then eventually I thought of moving to somewhere in the East Coast. I've got some friends and families here. I was initially planned to go to Hartford, the Aetna parent branch, but they took over a small company here, Aetna, Brentwood Life Insurance. It's a small company took over, and that's the reason Aetna asked me to come here. I came in Franklin. About Franklin, I love this place. Good people, good place, good climate, everything is good here. So I think I'll be here for next at least 2 or 3 years. I would be in Franklin, yeah, that's for sure. Coming to about my hobbies, I like reading, I like music. Recently I have developed a hobby of reading books and all. I love to party. In Seattle, I don't see many clubs here, but in Seattle, yes, I used to go to a lot of clubs and all. I remember one incident, I went to a club and sometimes, as I mentioned, there's a lot of cold air and it rains a lot. So sometimes I use nasal drops. So I went to a club and it was a huge crowd, people were drinking and all. So, and it was sneezing, so I was using as nasal drops. So people were all amazed what was the new thing I got it. Especially in India, use a lot, Yes, it's like if you feel cold and you put some drops and it circulates and you feel better. So a lot of people approach me that drugs. Well, no, this nasal drops. Just example to give, but yeah, that's about me. And about something more about my family. I belong to one of the royal families, so we have got the Havelis and all. If you see in picture, Rajasthan Havelis. So if you plan to come to India, do visit my place. It will be a great experience. And that's it about me. Over to you, Toastmaster.
All right, our second speaker of today will be Carol Brown, and let me read her introduction she gave me. Carol is speaking from the Competent Communicator Manual. And to give you a hint, this is speech number 7, research project. Now, it's been rumored that Carol's repeating this manual to add excitement to her life. But this morning, Carol is sharing what she has learned from a Matthew Kelly book on how to become the best version of yourself. The title of her speech is There Are No Coincidences. Let's welcome Carol Brown and find out how there are no coincidences in her life.
I've come to believe that if I experience the same thing twice, perhaps it's a coincidence. But if I experience the same thing more than 2 times, I decide it's not a coincidence. I'm meant to follow that path. And that happened with this book from Matthew Kelly. And the title of the book is The 4 Signs of a Dynamic Catholic. And I chose that book just at random to read. And the premise of the book is the 80-20 rule, and excuse me, that 80% of the effects come from 20% of the causes. And what he wanted to do is study a Catholic parish and see if that proved true in the parish, that 20% of the people were the contributors to the volunteer hours and to the financials. What he found is about 7% of the people in a parish contribute financially and have the most volunteer hours, and there's an overlap of that 7% of about 80%. Then he studied those people and came up with the 4 signs of a dynamic Catholic that he found from those parishes. What was interesting to me is that I chose that book at random. I belong to a faith-sharing group, and about a month later, they decided to study that same book. Now, I wasn't particularly impressed with the book when I read it the first time, and I said, well, I'm not a dynamic Catholic, and I just kind of set it aside. Now I get to review the book again with the whole set of people, and I'm still not particularly impressed. Then I went to a conference. The whole theme of this conference was that book. So I went, okay, it's not a coincidence. I need to study this book, but I need to declutter my life and simplify it so I have time to study the book. So I bought a CD, put the CD in, and I go, oh no, the person on the CD is giving me these same points to simplify my life so it's clear. So I thought I'd just share those 4 points with you this morning. The first one is prayer. To begin your day with prayer and have continuous prayer. The second point is study. To be a lifelong learner and study. And study so that you can share what you've learned with others. The third is generosity, and it's sharing your time, talent, and treasures with others. And the fourth one is evangelization. Now that point is really interesting because somewhere in the process of starting to study this book, I was asked to speak at a conference on evangelization. So I particularly studied that chapter. And maybe that's why I obviously was led to this book in the first place. I don't know. Let me go into the points a little more. Prayer, I believe in the power of prayer. But if you don't believe in prayer, then the concept is to start your day off with a focus and a routine every day. To the point where if you don't follow that routine, you know it. And the whole concept is once your day gets off to a bad start, then it's just hard to turn that day around. Franklin Time Management actually uses a quote a day to keep people on target. Study. The recommendation of Matthew Kelly is to read 5 pages a day. And read those 5 pages so that you can share what you've read with others. So it's a little deeper study than the 5 pages. And if you think about it, you read 5 pages a day, 365 days a year, that's 1,825 pages. And in 10 years, you've read 18,000 more pages. Generosity, sharing what you've studied. Being patient with others, sharing your talent, your treasures, your finances, and not being selfish with what you've learned. And that expands to anyone you come in contact, team members at work, your family, co-workers, and of course in Matthew Kelly's book, he's talking about the Catholic Church. But sharing these talents and treasures can apply to anything. And Fulton J. Sheen said it best. He said, don't evaluate your generosity on what you've given, but rather evaluate your generosity on what you have left. Now that you've prayed and you've studied and you're generous, now it's time to evangelize. And I thought that was really complicated, and really all that is about is sharing your story, sharing what you've come to believe from the study that you've done. And we have examples here. We've got Charles, who studies Toastmasters, And he's always willing to share with us and answer questions and is generous with his time. We've got Daryl, who strongly believes in fitness and shares with us. That's what evangelization is all about. And Matthew Kelly in his book talks about win, build, and send. The best way to evangelize is make a friend. Win them over. Build a relationship. And then you build them with the study, the knowledge you have that you've gotten from your questions, and then you send them forth. And it's like exhaling, because you've inhaled so much information, you're so excited about your information that you want to share it with everybody, and that's all that evangelization is. And if you think of Jesus and his disciples, he won them over, he built them up with his teachings, and he sent them forth to teach to the world. There are no coincidences. I'm sure I came across that book on purpose, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much.
Fellow Toastmasters, especially Prashant. Prashant was here today to deliver his icebreaker, which, as all of you know, is an introduction of himself to the club. And one thing I think you want to know when you walk away from an icebreaker is, did you get to know that person? And was he presented by himself to you in a way that makes you feel like you know him and want to know him better? And in this case, I will have to give Prashant an A+, because from what I've heard from him today, I'm very anxious to get to know him further, because I can see from what he's told us that he has a lot to offer to this club and to the community where he lives. Prashant tells us that he came here from, I believe he said Bombay in his speech, but actually, you know, it's now Mumbai. I don't know why that was changed. I kept hearing about Mumbai, and so finally I said, what is Mumbai? That must be some city that's grown up that suddenly over in India. And so when I started studying, I found that Mumbai is Bombay. And he came from, I think he said, a royal family. Did you say a royal family in Mumbai? He has a sterling education, he tells us, a mechanical engineering degree from the leading, or one of the leading universities in India, the name of which I didn't quite catch, but I'm going to get with him and get that, understand it. He told us a lot about himself in a very short time. He likes to walk. He likes to read. He likes to listen to music. He likes to party. All things which I also like to do. So, in achieving his introduction, he told us a lot about himself, and he made himself very, very interesting to us. Just a few suggestions, and I'm sure I don't really need to say this to Prashant. I think he probably knows it. When you are learning a foreign language, that's very difficult. It takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of thought. And so I would suggest that early on, as you continue to learn your English better, that you slow your speech down just a little bit. Speak a little bit more slowly when you're talking to an English audience, so that you can make yourself understood a little better. You obviously have a good grasp of English, and as you were talking, sometimes you would talk rather quickly, and I didn't always quite catch the words that you were saying. So that would just take a little practice, but just slowing down a little bit will help a great deal on that. In terms of your gestures, your expression, you're looking at your audience, your delivery, you're excellent. You have an excellent future. I really look forward to getting to know you better. I look forward to hearing some future speeches from you in Toastmasters. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much. Second evaluation. And here's a gentleman I know that has definitely got some orientation in his life now. John, if you would give an evaluation of Carol's speech.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
And every morning starts with "I'm hungry," right?
Yes, yes, Jordan is hungry. An interesting side note to Rashawn. I actually sold Tata Motors when I was an advisor to my clients as the stock, so that's kind of interesting. But we're here today to talk about Carol's speech. And her speech was titled, "There Are No Coincidences," based off of a book that she recently, uncoincidentally, kept being hammered over the head with. So there's a reason I'm sure that you read that. And the 4 signs of a dynamic Catholic. Now for me, there's some things I think are important to consider, but Carol's speech, was the topics, did it apply to the audience? Well, I think God applies to all of us. Now, true knowledge of God is the point. It's called theology. It's your knowledge of God. And we have to take that very seriously where we get our information. I believe the correct starting point is the Bible alone. So was the topic well researched? Yes, Carol clearly has read the book, I think, what was it, 3 times? 2 or 3 times. So most people don't even read a book once. They get through the first 10, 20%, and then they read the back cover. So Carol clearly researched her topic well. Her 4 points, which I think are true of anyone: prayer, study, generosity, and evangelism. Did the speaker vary her types of material? Well, I liked her reference to the Franklin quote of the day, because it was totally unrelated to her source. So it kind of varied where we were getting the information from as a reference to how to keep people on track. The speaker's purpose, again, I think Carol's purpose was pretty clear through the 4 points. I think that was the main gist of the book from what we could tell. And yeah, I think her speech was pretty effectively organized. Carol always has, in her speeches, the best part is her demeanor. She's so happy and upbeat, and I think it comes across in everything she says. I don't know if anyone can not like Carol. It might be impossible. Did the speaker take advantage of body language and vocal variety? Yes, of course she did. What could the speaker have done differently? You know, I don't think there is much you could have done differently in your speech. One point of contention, biblically speaking, evangelize means to share the good news, not just to be excited about an activity. The gospel is the good news from Greek. So I think Carol always does a fantastic job, and I look forward to speaking to her, or seeing her speak again soon. So thank you, Carol.
Have a great weekend. Appreciate it, and see you in 2 weeks.